Welcome back to another review video. My name is Reese. We are looking at the EcoFlow Delta Pro, or if you're considering getting an extra battery with it, I have one over here, so I will show you that as well. I've had the Delta Pro and extra battery and been using it for about 2 years now, and what impresses me about the system is that EcoFlow packed this originally with many features. Even new power stations coming to the market are trying to catch up with the features that are in the Delta Pro. And EcoFlow has been updating firmware and fine-tuning this all along. So it's still a premier power station. So after 2 years of using the Delta Pro and extra battery, it has worked flawlessly for me, no issues at all. The only thing that I've noticed that I could even mention is that when they're connected together, I've noticed that the state of charge doesn't match each other as it's draining down from, say, 100% down to 0. There is a procedure that you can run to rebalance them. I just haven't bothered to do that. But other than that, these have been great workhorses, and I've been mainly using them to keep my office off grid. So I can just plug in all my devices in the front. I'll show you them, and I can turn my lights, computer, everything. And if there was a power outage, I can run my fridge and chest freezer and all kinds of things, because this thing has a large battery and has a very large output. So first off, in case you're not familiar with what this is a battery mainly, and it has AC and DC outputs. The battery in here is 3.6 kilowatt hours of storage capacity. That's what its rating is. And it has lithium iron phosphate cells inside the battery. And that's something you want to pay attention to, because lithium iron phosphate cells last a really long time. These ones are rated for 3,500 cycles. A cycle is measured in when you charge the battery up all the way up to 100%, drain it all the way down to 0%, and then recharge it all the way back up to 100%. That counts as one cycle. So the Delta Pro rated for 3,500 cycles until its capacity gets down to 80% of the original stated capacity, and that's how they rate these batteries. That is 10 years of up and down daily use. So very, very long-lasting batteries. So with all that power, it does come in this bigger case here. This thing weighs about 100 pounds or so, and it has wheels on it. It has nice handles. You probably don't want to be carrying this around too often, although you can. It does have a very, very nice and sturdy telescoping handle. And so this comes out here, which makes it easy, very easy to move this around. I've moved this around in my yard to get to my solar panels out back, out to my RV to plug in my RV. It's very easy to move around with these wheels. They're very hardy, very sturdy, and I really have kind of beat this thing up, and it has survived what I've thrown at it. And this handle works really well too. So no problem there, very sturdy and easy to, relatively easy to move this around. You do have the two handles on the side in case you want to pick it up. So let's take a look at some of the physical features. Let's start here with the screen. You can see the input and output wattages. It'll show you those, so you can charge and discharge at the same time and see what those power ratings are. You can see the state of charge here. Mine says 64%. And then it has the time over here, which says 5 days. That's not really helpful at the moment because I'm not inputting or outputting anything. But this will show you the time to full, time to 100%, or time to empty down to 0. You have 4 USB-A ports. These two over here are the 18-watt fast charge. And then there's 2 power delivery ports at 100 watts USB-C. Down here you have 4 outlets plus a 30-amp RV port. And this is really handy, especially if you have an RV. So my RV is a 50-amp RV, and so this is called a dog bone. And so what you do is you plug this in right here, and then now with this end I can plug in my 50-amp service type plug. I'm only going to get up to 30 amps out of this plug, but generally speaking that's going to be enough power unless you're trying to run both rooftop ACs. But it will run one rooftop AC off of this outlet. And then across all 4 of these combined, you can get a 3,600 watt continuous output. And so that is a lot with a 7,200 watt surge. So what that means is you can run things like your refrigerator, an air conditioner, chest freezer. You can pretty much run all of those at the same time with that 7,200 watt surge and 3600 watt continuous. I have some space heaters over here that I'll show you in a minute. On the side, there's even more ports. Down here is what they call the infinity port. And with an adapter, you can charge this thing from an EV charging station. That's a pretty unique feature. You can also use this. This is where you plug in to connect to another Delta Pro with the double voltage hub to get up to 240 volts of output. So if you wanted to connect that into a generator inlet box, or you can get the EcoFlow smart home panel. Behind this door right here are some more options. There's an Anderson port, 12 volts at 30 amps output. There's your typical car 12 volt output here. And then there's some barrel ports. There is also a little plug here that says remote. And what that is you can run the wire through this little door right here. You can keep this whole thing closed. And then you can run that to an external monitor. So if you have this in your RV and you want to monitor with a touch screen, you can run an Ethernet, which is what I think that is, RJ45. You can run that all the way up to the place that you want to in your RV, get the screen. It's an additional purchase with this, but plug it in and then you can monitor and control your Delta Pro with that touch screen. On the back side of the Delta Pro, up here are some of the things for charging the unit. First, you can see there's a XT60 connector that looks like this. This is primarily what you're going to use to charge with a solar panel. And so you would plug that in right here to charge by solar. One of the neat things about the Delta Pro is that it can handle up to 1600 watts of solar. Now, watts is a combination of amps times volts. And I don't know if you can see it on here, but it says 11 to 150 volts DC with 15 amps max. That's how much solar panels you can bring in. And I think it's pretty important that it can handle up to 150 volts of DC through this cable here, because if you have large solar panels like the kind that are on your roof and you have them in series, you're going to get pretty close to this 150 volt maximum. And so you don't have to parallel those big panels. So I really like that it has such a large voltage input. There's a little custom switch here that you can use the app to change the voltage or the wattage of the charging input. And then there's the wall charging input right here. Down here is where you can plug in the extra battery. I have it over there to plug in. You could also plug in a second extra battery here to get, if you have both batteries in there, that's going to give you 10.8 kilowatt hours of storage capacity, which is getting pretty close to a Tesla Powerwall, which is, I believe, around 13 kilowatt hours of storage capacity. You can also plug in the EcoFlow gas generator here. So that's what I have. So I have the gas generator I can plug in here, plus an extra battery over here. And it's pretty neat because the Delta Pro can talk to the gas generator, and you can set the times, you can set the percentages, how much you want it to charge the battery before it stops. It's pretty neat that you can remotely control that. But obviously you don't have to get any of those extra things because the Delta Pro stands on its own. If you take a look at the extra battery, it just has one button on it, and it's going to show you the same amount of information, the same that's on the Delta Pro. But something that's kind of cool is it has a little storage container at the top where it has the cable that you're going to use to plug in to the Delta Pro. The Delta Pro extra battery has the same wheels. It's basically the same case as the Delta Pro. It weighs a little bit less, but it has that same telescoping handle, easy to move around, and very durable. Now let's do some tests. I have the Delta Pro connected up to the extra battery, and before I hook anything up, take a look at this. As soon as I connected these two together, you can see that the Delta Pro is balancing the state of charge with the extra battery. So this one is outputting about 40 watts, and this one is inputting about 40 watts. All right, so let me plug in my phone through the USB-C port, get that charging up. And I have a couple of space heaters here, so let me turn on the AC inverter and we'll plug these in. Like I mentioned before, this has a 3600 watt continuous AC output. And so if I turn on these space heaters, and I'll put them at maximum heat, so I've got two of them. Take a look at the screen right here. So here's the output. It's borrowing power from the battery. That's why this says input about 1200 watts. but the output is about 2,500 watts currently. Let me turn up this space heater to its maximum potential. And so you can see now the output is over 3,000 watts. It's going up a little bit more. Let's see if this goes any higher. Okay, so it looks like it's peaking out at about 3,300 watts. So with both space heaters running, I'm outputting a little over 3,000 watts. So there's still some room, about 600 watts or so, to continuously output power. And so for example, if I wanted to plug in my full-size refrigerator down there, in addition to these guys running, this has more capacity to do that. You might be concerned about the compressor kicking on because that uses a lot of power to start up. So on my refrigerator, for example, it needs about 2,000 watts to start the compressor and then about 100 watts to continuously run the fridge. So because this has a 7,200 watt peak, it can handle that surge, because even if we add 2,000 to this, that gives us 5,000. It only needs it for a brief, fraction of a second to get the compressor running. So this can handle starting my fridge. It might be able to start a small air conditioner at this point, because maybe 4,000 or 5,000 watts to start an air conditioner. But a small air conditioner for sure, a full-size refrigerator, a chest freezer. I could even run that on top of running these two space heaters. So truly impressive AC output on the Delta Pro. All right, I'm bringing the Delta Pro outside to show you a couple of things. One is how well I can transport this even across the grass over here to my solar panels. This handle makes it very easy to pull around, and I can put it like this. The other thing I want to show you is how well it works with solar panels. I don't know if you can see the two solar panels I have back here. They're kind of the solar panels that you might see on a roof. I just have them in my backyard. They are 385 watt solar panels each, and they are in series. And if you remember, I was explaining the voltage input on the Delta Pro, and the reason that that matters is because these solar panels are about 40 watts, 40 volts each, and when you put them in series, connected together, you add up the voltages, the amperage stays about the same. So they are a 10 amp rated, and if I have two in series, that's 80 volts at 10 amps, which is underneath the limit of the Delta Pro. I could even add a third panel that would get me up to close to 120 volts and still at 10 amps. So I could have three of these 385 watt panels in series. When you parallel solar panels, that's when you add up the amps. So let me plug this in and I'll show you what it looks like to charge it up. I just connected those MC4 connectors. Here's the XT60 connector. I'm going to put it back in the Delta Pro, and then we'll take a look at the input. All right, now let's take a look at the solar input on the screen. You can see it's inputting about 200 watts of solar. It was just about 500 watts just a few seconds ago, but a cloud had covered over the sunlight and it dropped down. And since my solar panels and most solar panels are at a fixed angle and orientation, you're going to get a varying degree of input throughout the day. Something else that's a great feature with the Delta Pro and pretty much any EcoFlow product is that it works very, very well with the smartphone app. So I have it connected up with Bluetooth to the Delta Pro because I have my phone in airplane mode, which is also great because if you're camping or if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can talk from smartphone app to the Delta Pro without any problem. You can also use it with Wi-Fi, and say you're on the other side of the world, you can monitor and control your Delta Pro. So here are some of the features. You can see the state of charge, the internal battery temperature. I can toggle between input and output and see what the wattages are. You could turn on various functions, so I could turn on the AC output or turn it off. Same with the DC outputs here. And then I can see, what is being used. So if I wanted to, let's plug in my phone again to the USB-C port, and it should show us what the output is. So yeah, take a look down here in the corner. The USB-C is outputting 22 watts or so. I particularly like the app when I can monitor when I have it hooked up to solar. So right now it says 0 watts because I'm not hooked up to solar panels, but I can see what's happening with the extra battery. So right here I can see the state of charge on either one of them. and there's all kinds of things that you can change in the app. Energy management, you can change this. It's kind of a little complicated. When it should charge, when it should discharge, screen brightness, the homepage style. I like this. You can change the AC recharging speed. So sometimes you don't want to charge at 15 amps from your wall outlet for various reasons. One might be you just have a cable that can't handle 15 amps, and so you can charge this slower. Or if you don't want the fan to come on as much, you want to charge it a little bit slower. And so it has this toggle here so you can charge at the AC speed that you would like. You can control the smart generator here, as I had mentioned earlier. If I go here, I can have it stop charging at 66% or 71% or whatever you want. You can set that. There's a number of other settings in here, but probably my favorite is the ability to click on this firmware button and check on your firmware status and upgrade it with a click of a button. You know, mine says that it can't get to the internet because I'm in airplane mode. But that's one of my best features, and it's so easy to just upgrade the firmware and get the latest that they have. And EcoFlow is really good with this because when the Delta Pro came out, it could only handle 1200 watts of solar input, but they upgraded the firmware so that you can now get 1600 watts of solar input. So they really are on top of the firmware upgrades and making this thing as best as it can be. All right, so let me say a few more things about if you're thinking about getting the Delta Pro or Delta Pro an extra battery or 2 extra batteries. The Delta Pro is also designed as part of the Delta Pro ecosystem. So you can get it by itself. You can get it with an extra battery, or like I said, another battery. You can get it with the gas generator. You can get 2 Delta Pros and the double voltage hub to connect those two together. So you have a 240 volt output that you can use to plug into your generator inlet box, for example, or you could connect it up to the EcoFlow Smart Panel. You also have the ability to get that touch screen and plug it into the side. So something that I mentioned at the very beginning of this video is that I've owned and used this for about 2 years. The Delta Pro at this point has been out about 2 years, and I mentioned that they have features in here that other manufacturers are still trying to catch up with. So let me mention a few of those. One is the lithium iron phosphate batteries. Pretty much everybody is moving to that now. They have 100 watt power delivery ports, the USB-C ports. Many are just moving to that, the 100 watt output. The Delta Pro has two of these ports, and so many stations are just coming out. They just have one, so they're catching up, and now they're making 2. Delta Pro had 2 to begin with. They have the ability to charge at an EV charging station. You do have to get an adapter to plug it in on the side. The smartphone app over Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, and then you'll also have the expandability with extra batteries. So the Delta Pro is a great system, and if you're thinking about getting it, I would recommend it.